Burtonport, or Ailt al Chorráin, as it's in the Gaeltacht, and there's no way I've pronounced that correctly. I remember visiting the I visited the Gaeltacht a few times, but listening to the radio and thinking it sounded more Scandinavian than Welsh. I couldn't understand a word. But it's a fishing village in the Rosses district of County Donegal. In 1974, a community called Atlantis Primal Therapy Commune was established in Burtonport by Jenny James. The commune, which came to be known as the Screamers for its practice of primal therapy, moved to the island of Inishfree in 1980. From 1982 to 1992, Burtonport was home of the Silver Sisterhood, a new religious movement. The group had also been referred to as the Rhennish Community, after the Welsh legend Rhiannon and St. Bride's. English writer Marianne Martindale was a prominent member. The Silver Sisterhood came to Burtonport from Hebden Bridge in September 1982. They christened the house An Droichead Beo, meaning the Bridge of Life. There were initially 7 members. In the prospectus to St. Bride's School, Burtonport, it described the area is one of outstanding natural beauty, containing over 100 lakes. The house itself commands views of the Atlantic, with islands and inlets on 3 sides, while to the east the rugged countryside sweeps away into the Derivan Mountains. The girls receive the healthy benefit of lively sea air and fresh open countryside, and in the matter of sunshine, so vital to the health of growing girls, we're singularly favoured. And the school, the imposing Victorian building, which now houses St. Bride's, was originally built as a hotel. It served in that capacity for some years, and later as a private rest home. In April this year, it was officially reopened by the Mayor of the Rosses, Mr. James Gallagher, as St. Bride's School for Young Ladies. The sisterhood believed in a feminine supreme deity. They worshipped God as the mother and claimed that everything they did centred around the worship of her. It was thus a development of Mandrianism, combining diverse influences from pre-Vatican II Roman Catholic Marian devotion, imported currents of Bhakti-oriented Hindu Shaktism, feminist-aligned Wicca, and lesbian separatist discourse. Their system was particularly indebted to the traditionalist thought of Rhennish Community and Ananda Kumasawari. The Mandrians followed these authors in preaching the decline of ages, modifying their paradigm of history with reference to theories of Marija Gimbutas and others who promoted models of matrifocal and matriarchal antiquity. And music and chanting had great importance as acts of devotion. The musical instruments used by the group were all handmade by them. They stressed great emphasis on craft as a path to the sacred. There was also an emphasis on self-sufficiency. And members grew food to feed themselves and sell. Members fasted on Fridays by skipping breakfast and lunch. They operated a tea room in the house which served the town. No electricity or modern appliances were used by the group initially, and plastic was shunned as a pollutant. Female members wore full-length dresses, covered their heads in public, and referred to themselves as maids. The principal exponent of this outlook was the French writer Rhennish Community, 1886 to 1951, whose Crisis of the Modern World, 1946, sets out his doctrine of modernity as decline. Rhiannon's work is relatively apolitical. Traditionalism's other leading light was aristocratic Italian writer and one-time Dadaist painter Julius Evola, 1898 to 1974, a pagan monarchist and esoteric race theorist, so far to the right that in 1942 his passport was confiscated by the Italian Fascist Party for political extremism. Among the many side projects was a campaign to abolish a metric system whose motto was "Don't give an inch," of which Sir Patrick Moore was a patron. Later in the 1980s, members began to wear full Victorian-era outfits on a regular basis and to style themselves as romantics. And many publications originated from the school, but notably there was a journal on romanticism. In 1984, the house was rechristened as St Bride's, after the 5th century Irish abbess and miracle worker. There was no electricity at the school and members communicated in a form of Old English. Visitors to St Bride's were offered various courses, including peat cutting and the experience of attending a Victorian boarding school. The school was advertised in various publications, including The Observer, The Sunday Time, Girl About Town, and the theatre programme of the play Daisy Pulls It Off. The prospectus offered courses in mathematics, elementary Latin, grammar and literature. It also mentioned St Bride's is a small school with small classes. This permits a high degree of individual attention to be given to each girl, while helping her to become a part of the whole. To develop the team spirit, the school tries to be sensitive to the individual's needs of each child in its care. Different temperaments require different treatment, and we're happy to discuss in advance the special needs of your child. Traditional school artefacts such as desks, slates, uniforms and canes were included in the setting. Discipline and corporal punishment, including caning, were part of the experience and achieved a great prominence in later years. This led to the group being called a fetish club. In 1990, Miss Martindale was convicted of assaulting one of her clients and was handed a £100 fine and a 2-month suspended sentence. The assault was by caning on the buttocks, which Martindale claimed was consensual. And whenever I have a maid, she receives corporal punishment, although all visitors were known as maids. I'd hit a girl who'd done a very naughty thing with a single birch twig. I've also come across stories of women who recovered thousands of dollars from Martindale, which they had paid to join the community, but claimed that they'd simply been abused both verbally and mentally. One business venture they're well known for is creating 8 textual adventure video games. Indeed, one gets the impression that they got involved in was an attempt to make enough money to keep the community going. The anachronism explained, although quite possibly a red herring, by the arrival as a pupil of Priscilla Langridge, who, the story goes, heretically brought a Commodore 64 with her and apparently found the school's only plug socket. Langridge, her real name at the time, had responded to one of the newspaper advertisements offering idiosyncratic escape from normality for £120 per week, and had bought into the fantasy enough that she stayed on. Martindale was sceptical about the computer, but Langridge told Miss Smithson she realised that unlike television, which he thinks is passive and mind-rotting, computer games call for concentration and commitment. Multiple reports suggested that Langridge was actually male, implying another type of personal interest in seeking to alter reality through performance. The Secret of St Bride's, a time travel adventure set in the school itself, was the first game they created, followed by The Snow Queen, based on Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, The Very Big Cave Venture, a parody of colossal cave adventure, and this also included sequences parodying Alice in Wonderland and Batman, a Bugsy set in Prohibition-era Chicago and starring a gangster rabbit, and Jack the Ripper set in the 1888 London and a mythical Otherland. A departure from St. Bride's earlier light-hearted adventures, Jack the Ripper was the first video game to receive an 18 rating, mainly based on the illustrations supplied by the publisher CRL. The Examiner described the script as more fairy tale than macabre horror. The solution to which involved wielding the pure and wonderful female soul essence of one of Jack's victims to end his reign of terror. Interestingly, solving the mystery of the Ripper's identity is irrelevant, and after a first 2/3 around the streets and houses of Victorian London, the final, utterly bizarre stretch has you wrestling with baffling Masonic puzzles in a subterranean underverse. The final games were more traditional fantasies and were released in 1991 by GI Games. The Secret of St. Bride's, about a very peculiar institution, operating out of a rackety old house in Burtonport, County Donegal. The player, as Trixie Trinian, waking one morning in 1985 to discover that all the evidence points to the year actually being 1927. Initial escapades include donning a gown to get past some of the stern mistresses, and of course judiciously using a mouse to frighten off a charging elephant. Outside the school you encounter both village life, the local peeler will arrest you at the drop of a gym slip, and some fantasy creatures before you head for the town, marry a Maharaja, and track down the mysterious authoress Miss Merlin, who has the power to send you back to your own time. There's also an epilogue with a magic amulet, should you choose to indulge. The setup for the game echoed a carefully constructed and maintained aura of mystery around the place, advertised in the early 80s broadsheets as a place where women could go and relive St. Trinian-style boarding school childhood they'd never actually experienced. St. Bride's offers a classical curriculum, ran the prospectus, the cardinal subjects being mathematics, elementary Latin, grammar and literature. The day begins with a rising bell at 7:30. Our girls receive the healthy benefits of lively sea air and fresh open countryside, and in the matter of sunshine, so vital to the health of growing children, we're singularly well favoured. The school also boasted facilities such as a modern gramophone, which may sometimes be used by an unsupervised group of girls, providing that great care is taken to avoid overwinding. The group left Burtonport in 1992, relocating to Oxford. Indeed, it's likely that they originated at Lady Margaret's Hall and then Whipps Cross, London. Their club at Lady Margaret's Hall, founding member with Martindale, originally used the name Hester St. Clair and gradually created a complex philosophy and fantasy world called Aristasia, which positioned two female sexes dominated by brunettes and submissive blondes and encouraged retreat from the modern world. Hester, a traditionalist, and in the late 1960s she began to gather a group of younger women, mostly Oxford students, who were dismayed by the cultural collapse of the decade. The cultural tenet of Aristasia, if there could be just one, is that we're living in the void. According to their doctrines in the 1960s, the Sexual Revolution destroyed our civilization. Aristasia referred to this cultural decline as the eclipse. Is Hester the same as Deborah McBride, whom was studying for a doctorate at Lady Margaret Hall. It's believed that we now live in the void, and the void's cultural degeneracy is the pit in Aristasian jargon. Aristasia's participation in Philanonist goddess worship religion took a back seat relative to the ideas of the pit and the void. It's believed that she later worked as a teacher. Far-right and anti-Semitic publications were found in the house after they left, including material produced by the neo-Nazi organisations and sadomasochistic S industry. Anti-Semitic periodicals from all over the world lay in piles on the floor, alongside fetishism magazines featuring women in gas masks and suspenders, and price lists for equipment such as handcuffs and leg irons. Titles strewn around included National Front News and British Nationalist Party's Spearhead. This also included a 2-year correspondence with John Tyndall, then leader of the British National Party, who expressed his admiration for what St Bride's group were doing. In one letter, Mr Tyndall, talking about politics, said, "I admire and respect what you're doing to a point of fascination," and says he agrees entirely that there should be secession from the modern world. Of himself, he says he is spiritually with one foot in the 19th century and the other in perhaps the 17th or 18th. There were several cites made by those who seem other than the core group in the early 2000s. They argued that St Bride's had received fan mail from John Tyndall, perhaps unsolicited, or even speculated that Tyndall might have prurient reasons for writing them. Despite this, one former member denied an interview with the Daily Express that they had far-right leanings. "I'm not interested in politics of any form or political activity. The letters were addressed to another girl living in the house. But if I wanted to write to Mr Tyndall, I would, as we live in a fully civilised society where I can write to who I want." Nevertheless, Martindale is a royalist and imperialist, but with loyalty only to the Aristasian monarchy and empire. In addition to this, large quantities of sadomasochistic fetish magazines were found at the property, alongside caning recommendation forms, which, according to the Sunday Telegraph, indicated regular beatings were occurring at St Bride's. Aristasia was never a large community or religious group, but in 2005 a decisive sectarian split doomed the movement. Operation Bridgehead was a coordinated effort by a sect of disgruntled community members to reshape Aristasia according to their values, in the past and the present, by deleting old resources and dictating the movement's direction going forward. Two primary doctrinal differences separated Operation Bridgehead proponents and operatives from the run-of-the-mill Aristasia in Telluria. Firstly, they wanted to eradicate the memory of Aristasia's kinky lesbian origins in favour of extreme focus on their values of innocence and cuteness. Secondly, they believed in the literal existence of Aristasia Pura. For them, it was not a role-playing game, but a fan fiction setting. And Miss Martindale, the co-founder of the Wildfire Club publishing house, and edited a collection of stories titled Disciplined Ladies. It produced female-centric BSDM literature, including a title, The Female Disciplinary Manual, which is much of what you'd expect. According to press reports of its 1995 launch, at that point there were several full immersion Aristasian houses dotted around England where members lived out the Aristasian reality, including its practice of corporal punishment. Including the Avondale School for Girls in London, which met once a week and girls could bring a note from their mother if discipline was required. The disciplinary cane was the feared instrument of discipline and the ultimate sanction in correction, and provides details on the ideal dimensions of the type of rattan this implement ought to be crafted with. The disciplinary cane ought to be 91.5 centimetres and should be 10 millimetres in diameter, and furthermore, unlike the other lesser rattan canes that are made of lighter weight rattans, the disciplinary cane should be crafted out of a tougher and more durable kind of rattan. In a different literature, she mentions a special kind of wild rattan that grows in Malaya and Sumatra region, and durability and strength as its chief characteristics. From 2003 to 2005, Martindale wrote the ladies' column in the Chap magazine and was Astasia's media representative. She discontinued this in accordance with the Bridehead doctrine, which discouraged Astasians from publicly commenting on foreign, i.e. earth, culture and politics. Miss Martindale, also known as Catherine Tyrrell, and Maria de Colwyn, Mary Scarlett and Mary Gilliman, eventually married film director Jean Gilliman of Towering Inferno fame. She now works as a respected marriage guidance counsellor to the rich and famous in Topeka, California. In 2019, she put on a one-woman show entitled From Crazy to Sane, or Am I? Normally I conclude such vlogs by pointing out a connection to the security services. And despite all the hallmarks, I can find none. Not least that the BNP was known for being riddled with agents and informants. Certainly many of the locals in Burtonport concluded this. No, the best lead I had was Agatha Christie's The Clocks, which mentions a Miss Martindale and MI5. But I must observe that Mary Gilliman appears to be more a confidence trickster or fraudster than a spy. But then who knows the truth behind this bizarre yarn?